what drives you as a person? Like, why do you get up every day, keep going?
Oh, we're starting heavy, huh?
I could ease into it. We can come back to that.
No. I just, it's, I mean, it's not one thing.
Okay.
I would say, what keeps me going in life? Well, I'm super religious, so my faith keeps me going. In that vein, my family also is incredibly important to me. So I get up every day and do my best for my husband and my daughter. I'm also just generally live to find joy um, in everything. And my main philosophy in life is not to let anybody steal my joy. So I get up every day just looking for new opportunities to find joy and hopefully help others find joy as well.
Really like that. Sorry, I don't have much to say about that other than I mean, like,
And
what
Reese
is it?
cups also get me
What
going.
was that?
And Reese cups, the occasional Reese
Uh,
cup. Except for I'm keto now, so I have to do Slim Fast Reese cups, which aren't quite the same.
I didn't even know Slim Fast.
They have a whole keto line, and their Reese cups are okay.
All right, I'll keep that in mind.
But yeah, I know. I mean, that's probably a pretty generic answer, but without going into really specific details, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, it's all your words. It's not generic at all. You'd be surprised how often it's different for each person of like what it is that keeps them going or necessarily the things that make them want to keep doing whatever it is that they're doing. Um, you said things that bring you joy. You try to find joy in everything. So like, what would be an example of that?
Well, like my work. So, first of all, I believe we should work to allow ourselves to live, not live for our work. So, I work because I have to, because I need money to enjoy my life. But my work is definitely not my life. But while I'm there, I try to enjoy it as much as possible. Um, it's a family business and we're incredibly busy. It's a retail environment. And I know that, like, my brother who works there as well, he's frequently stressed out because it's overwhelming. We're having an amazingly record breaking year, and it's not like we've hired any extra help. So we're just really overworked and crazy. And I can see how it affects us differently. But I've known him my whole life, and we've always done things differently. And I can see that he is focused a lot on the stress and the, what's got to get done. And I try to focus more on the, wow, look at, how great we're doing. And hey, you know what? I get to help someone design their house today. And that's fun. And I'm not saying I never have a stressful moment or get down, because I do, but I just don't find, I think life is wonderful even when it's not, because it was a gift and we only get one. And so I'm not going to waste my day just being miserable and stressed out if I can help it.
I mean, even without faith, it's definitely a great.
But yeah,
You know
I think
why?
you don't have to be religious to feel like life
Yeah,
is still a gift. That just puts a different spin on it for me. But no, I think a lot of people, religious or not, forget sometimes. And just reminded recently, my sister-in-law just lost her father, and my mother-in-law's sick, and it just reminds you that we really just get a certain length of time, and we don't know what that is. And I know people always say, live like it's the last day, but I don't think most people really do. Um, and actually, I will say there's downsides to it. I'm not the most responsible person. I don't like to plan super far in advance. I like to wing it in life, and I tend to be a little more chaotic than some other people because I'm just not super organized. So there's downsides to living, the philosophy life that I do, but it's what makes me happy.
definitely understand that. Some could say this, try to definitely find joy or some type of, you know, positive thing from what it is that I'm doing or experiencing throughout my days. What does live your day like it's your last mean to you?
I wish I did a better job of it, honestly, but I don't want to have regrets. Um, I don't have very many in my life just because, again, I believe all the experiences that I've had, good or bad, have led me to where I am. There's a whole chain of crazy kind of events that led to me meeting my husband, so I'm not going to regret any of those. Um, but I don't want to have regrets because, and I guess it's similar to the whole work philosophy. I don't want to not wake up tomorrow, or worse, wake up tomorrow and my husband doesn't, or someone else in my life doesn't, and I didn't spend the time with them that I wanted to, or do the things that I wanted to. And it sounds so, I don't know, but like I really haven't been out west yet, and I really want to go out west. And so, to some extent, even if it's not practical, I'm gonna make that happen because I don't care if I'm not a millionaire when I retire. If I got to live the experiences that I wanted to live, within reason, I'm not trying to be completely irresponsible, but I
Yeah.
don't like. For instance, my daughter and I kind of were in an argument last night, and we both went to bed, and I just didn't feel right about it. And about 5 minutes later, she came into my room, and we just snuggled for about 20 minutes. And then she went back to bed, and it was just like, that's the way I should have ended it. I shouldn't have ended it the way we did before. I want to make sure that if these moments are our last, that we live them the way we wanted to.
Okay. Yeah,
And
I mean,
again, I don't have strong ambitions like, if I never become a millionaire, if I'm never a famous actress or any of that, that doesn't matter to me. It's about the small things, really. I want to make sure that I don't forget to tell people I love them and things like that.
well, I mean, what do you mean by strong ambition?
I don't know, like a lot of the people in my life are very driven people. So they want to really, really, really work hard at their career to, you know, keep getting raises and keep getting promotions, or they want to get a bigger house and then a bigger house and a bigger house. And I'm not saying I have no ambition, but I've purposely chosen paths in my life that have diminished my potential in those areas because I refuse to sacrifice life for those things. I 100% believe I could have been an amazing lawyer. I have the right skill sets for it, an amazing reader, blah, 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 blah. I took an LSAT practice test once and scored amazing, all that stuff. But the lifestyle you would have to live, it just isn't what I wanted. So I didn't pursue that because I wanted to make sure that my life was the priority and not my work. So for some people, work means a lot, and that's great. But to me, I'd rather have a smaller house and live a more modest life than feel like I'm never home and never getting to just live.
Yeah, I mean, we all have different ambitions and different things that drive us, and if yours is to enjoy, what you have and kind of what you've done, like you said, then always getting a bigger house and a house and a bigger house wouldn't necessarily please fulfilled. So I don't think that it makes it. I wouldn't say that you don't have strong ambitions. I think that's there's no strong or weak ambition really. It's all whether or not you care about it.
No, you're right. I guess I don't have strong ambitions in what I would consider typical areas that people around me have. But you're right. The things that I do want in life, I do want them a lot and strive hard
Y-
for them. It's just the things that most people, I guess, one of my biggest fears is that people think I'm just a big kid and refuse to grow up because I think people think if you live the way I live, that somehow it's juvenile. At least that's the way I feel sometimes from the people in my life. that somehow wanting to just have fun, it's like I never grew up. And it's not like that. It's not like I never do responsible stuff. Obviously, I have a house and a job and child, but my focus, not my focus, the lens I see life through is how can I do this in the most fun way possible. One of my internet tags for years was boycott boredom. I want to just always make sure, no matter what boring thing I'm doing, that I'm going to have the most fun music playing while I'm doing it. I just refuse to, I'm going to try to take everything and make it as fun as possible. And I think some people think that's, I don't know, weird, or like I said, like I never grew up, and if that's the case, then so be it. But um, that's just kind of the way I see things.
Well, I can tell you that it doesn't matter what other people think about what you want to do,
Yeah,
because
but
you're
it
the one who has to
does,
live it. You're the one who has to live it. I
of
mean,
course.
it's
But
you do have to deal with certain people maybe that are around often that might give you those opinions, but at that point, I feel like that's kind of a form of somewhat disrespect to who you are and not accepting the fact that, I mean, because I want to have fun. I try to do things in a fun way. And my motto for it was, as long as I take care of my adult responsibilities, which is build, job, pay the bills, work the job, get the money, do what I can still have fun. I can still enjoy myself. That doesn't have to stop me from doing that. And will I want other things as well? Maybe eventually, but right now they don't appeal as much to me as much as me trying to find some way to enjoy the fact that I'm alive.
right, no, that yes, you're correct. Although I do worry sometimes, given the choice of, let's see, do I do laundry tonight or do we go to the pool? I don't know that I always make the best grown up choice.
Well,
Sometimes
yeah.
I might not make the best grown up choice, but I haven't managed to lose anybody in my life yet. They've all managed to, be fed and clothed for the most part. I think I've only forgotten to have clean underwear for my daughter once in 8 years. So I think we're, for the most part, at least functioning as adults. Um, but as far as what people think around you, it does matter to some extent, because the practical stuff in life does affect my ability to do the impractical. If I don't have a job or I don't have any kind of support network, then I can't necessarily live the life I want to live. And so the people at my work having to think that I'm doing a good job and being responsible, it doesn't matter, because if I don't have a job, then I don't get to have that freedom. So, and again, that's one of those things that at work sometimes I feel like they all look at me like I'm doing something wrong because I'm not stressed, like as if I don't care enough about the job. And I don't even know how to fake being as stressed out as them, because it's just not my nature. But I feel
Yeah.
like sometimes I get judged like, well, you just, this doesn't mean as much to you because, you know, simply because I handle the stress better. And it's frustrating because it's not the truth at all. I think that they just don't know how to go home and forget that work exists for a little bit. Um, but yeah, I do feel like sometimes you get judged because, as if, if the weight of the world isn't on you, if you know how to go home and compartmentalize and forget, then somehow that means you care less.
I mean, that comes from that person's perspective of what it is to care. If they think that caring is overworking themselves and stressing themselves out, then of course they're going to think that the opposite is not caring.
Correct.
And but that doesn't mean that it is correct. It doesn't even mean that that's right, or that it's, what the actual reality of the situation is. And I think that's important to understand. That's what I mean by, like, it doesn't matter what other people
Right. And
necessarily think of you.
doesn't mean that they're wrong either, because
Yes.
for their worldview, that's what makes sense to them, and that's how they judge things, and that's fine.
Right.
But as with everything in life, people have
Yeah.
different perspectives on things, and it's very difficult sometimes to see things from the other person's perspective.
Yeah, but I also think that it's healthy to find the balance of whether or not you should care about this person's perspective for this situation, or whether or not that person should, like, because there's a collective group thinking and there's also individual thinking. But as a collective group, would we all think that it is correct or that it is wrong for you to be stressed out and overwork yourself all the time for your job in order to show that you care?
That's interesting that you think there is still a collective groupthink, because I believe that there. almost always is in society, but I believe right now it's like society is purposely trying to say that there's something wrong with any kind of collective groupthink, and that we all must have our own individual thoughts, and anyone who tries to say there should be any kind of collective groupthink is somehow a bad person.
I have not heard any of that before, but
Oh, and
I
just in
do.
general, like I don't think
Yeah.
people, in at least in current society, I don't think it's much more accepted to say everybody's viewpoint is valid than it is to say no, there's one right viewpoint for our society. But in the past, human history, I think very often, for survival purposes, there was one really good way of thinking for society, and people all kind of got on board with that. And I'm not saying that's right and today's wrong or vice versa, but it is feels to me today like that is a very archaic thought, and that you should be celebrating the fact that everybody has their own viewpoint and not even suggest that there could possibly be a group viewpoint anymore.
So then, what would you call multiple people agreeing about something?
Well, I do think that there are collective group things. I'm just saying,
Okay.
just like in society to say that anymore, you
Okay.
get kind of, because then you kind of are encroaching the word normal, which people have taken out of concept. I mean,
Yeah. I mean,
normal just means what the average person thinks. But these days, to even suggest that there is any kind of normal or average is just kind of frowned upon. So it's almost like, yeah, most of us think this, but we can't really say most of us think this because we have to make sure we don't offend anybody who doesn't think this.
well, I think it's important to understand that when you try to say the average person, you also have to accept the fact that the average person changes all the
Correct.
time. So there's no way to say that. I mean, because eventually we all had to come together and say we should stop killing each other. So that became a collective group thought of that's a bad thing to do, you know?
Right.
And yes, there are exceptions. Yes, there are people that would think that it's not a bad thing. But those people weren't the ones that were. I mean, that's what the whole point of having voting is about, is to get what pretty much the majority wants. And it can be warped, is what sucks. It can be, if it doesn't exist, but if a perfect person were put into the position of being in control of what was right and what was wrong for every single person in the world, and they could actually do it and not be swayed in any direction to change what is correct and what is wrong based on, like, well, these people say that. I mean, because there's collective things we could all agree on that are just basic. This is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. Those are called facts, I would assume, for the right and wrong type deal. Facts wouldn't exist if we didn't have a right. So I don't know how we would implement that, because unfortunately human beings are very suspicious and very paranoid by nature. So we wouldn't believe, not every single person, like 100%, every single person, we'll just say in the United States, would never collectively agree that one person should be in charge of this, and that they would all trust that person's word, because there's just too many people. Like, I think throughout history, we forgot a lot of how many people existed in an area together compared to now. You've got, it's just hard to come to. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I was listening to
Yeah.
someone talk just today actually about, we were discussing rest and how it's a very not only important thing, but it's a very beautiful thing that we should all really aspire to do. That we should all take, some time, and truly rest and enjoy life, enjoy each other, or whatever. But one of the things that they were pointing out is that we really, as people, for the most part, were designed to be in villages, and our life experiences were designed to be village wide. The fact that we're inundated constantly with every tiny village in every part of this country and then this other country and the whole world, we're seeing the stressors and the problems and the weight of an entire world now, whereas really up until recently, you just really only had the problems in your village, which you could for the most part fix. I can't fix what happens across the world, and yet somehow I'm exposed to it, and then I have to feel that stress. And so in general, we're just all put under this pressure that we weren't designed for, because like you were saying, we all had a collective, but when your collective is a village, it's a lot easier. When your collective is now the world, there's no way the whole world is going to see things the same. When it was a village, it was just a lot easier to have that kind of collective mentality.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, I've thought, I spent a lot of thinking towards like, how could we possibly do that nowadays? And I mean, the only thing that really ever stops me from saying that yes, it would be a great thing and we should implement it is that someone could corrupt it.
Will,
Because
you
if it
mean,
became,
because corruption
yes,
always happens.
yes, I mean, and eventually someone will, yes, and that does suck. That pretty much means to me though that we would never be a 100% peaceful with each other's species because of that.
I don't think there's a species on the planet that is. I mean, at least not very many. Almost every species on the planet has interspecies turmoil, even if it's just for mating purposes. But I think it's unrealistic for us to expect that there is a possibility of a utopia or a perfectly peaceful society, because that's just not how anything in reality is created.
I do agree
So
with
let's
that. I
take
mean, I
truth
think no
out of
matter
it. Just
what,
look at it from a scientific point of view. If all you do is look with your eyes around you, the whole world is filled with violence. And there's not peace anywhere, really. So why would we think that we would be different?
hmm, probably because the violence in our species is so drastically different than every other.
Oh,
You
it
know,
started the same. A
the amount that it
farmer wanted to
affects.
keep another farmer from stealing his stuff, so I mean, it all started with cavemen and whacking each other with a club. I mean, just because we have nuclear weapons doesn't mean it's really any different in philosophy. We're still fighting over resource, fighting over, it's different. I mean, it's different because we have the intelligence to create really long fangs and teeth, but it's still the same root philosophy, basically.
Yes, but I do believe that for what's going on now and what's gone on for the past 100 years is that it's progressively getting to a point where it's now affecting really badly the only place that we exist.
You think our fighting, our violence is what's affecting the planet badly.
Well, not that I'm not saying that it's causing the planet to go into anything, but I'm saying destroying the lands, destroying the environments. We are now killing and overthrowing other animals we share the planet with. We're destroying resources over each other. You know, we're destroying each other over pieces of land that may not exist very long because we'll use it all up and it's not going to come back. That's where I
So
think
that
that
we're
that's what the
inherently
problem
wrong
is.
or bad because our brains developed to a level that allowed us to do all of these things. Because I do not believe for a second that if a lion could get as intelligent as us, that they wouldn't do the same thing. So I don't inherently believe humans are any worse than any other species. I just think that we were smarter and able to come up with better ways of doing what everybody else does. I think lions would do the same thing. And as a matter of fact, unless they also had our empathy, probably wouldn't care one lick that they were destroying all the other species on the planet.
To me, that's what my problem is the not caring, not trying to in some way. I mean, because there are people out there who are trying to say, you know, hey, we probably shouldn't do this, and we shouldn't act this way, we shouldn't do these things. And I do agree that yes, it is possible that a lion could gain the intelligence and absolutely do the exact same thing. And we are the only ones that we are aware of that have an innate right and wrong inside us. But I don't think that, I mean, because this entire thing is opinionated. I don't think any of this is, you know, 100% fact. I'm not saying that you're right or wrong or anything
Oh no,
more
of
than
course not.
anyone else is. I'm just saying that, I guess for what I follow, what I believe, what I would put belief in would just be the fact that I don't think we'll ever hit a utopia where there's absolutely no violence. But I do think we could try a little harder than we already are to try to treat those symptoms. Like, I know it's never going to be perfect. It doesn't have to be. We're not perfect. There's so much wrong with us as individuals sometimes that also comes out as a symptom in a population rather than just the individual. And the only way to really help the population is to help the individuals. But it's hard to say what's right and wrong. As
Well,
far
it
as
is
the
very difficult to say what's right and wrong when those things evolve over time for a culture. And
yes,
again, now I'm not trying to be all preachy here, but one of the reasons that specific religions work well for society in certain ways is because there is a defined right and wrong. If you let's just take that out of the mix, let's say there's no religion and it's just us, and that somehow instinctively, without any kind of external um, God figure, we all just somehow know there's a right and wrong. But without any structure to that, then it's a changing, because what's right and wrong in our society today, not necessarily in everybody's mind, what's right and wrong today isn't exactly what was right and wrong 100 years ago. And if it's open to being changeable, then in theory, it's like nothing ever really is right or wrong. And also, who's to say your right and wrong is my right and wrong? If there is no definite 100% right and wrong, then I'm kind of like, why wouldn't I just do whatever the heck I want? What's best for me? Why would I care about the planet? Why would I care about you? Why would I care about making a utopia? Why wouldn't I just go steal from everybody and do what I want if there is no real right and wrong? Because then I can just say that's my right and wrong. So I guess that's why I believe utopia on Earth won't happen, because one, we're completely flawed people, and two, there is no definite right and wrong in society. And so hold you can't have a perfect union if there's no actual defined right. Now, certain societies, small, can. You can have a group of people who all sign a contract to say this is what's right and wrong in their little tiny corner of the, little commune. But to get an entire country or an entire world to agree on what's right and wrong is, I just don't think, possible.
I think it's possible right now because we're only just reaching the point of actually communicating with each other across the whole world. Like, there is going to come bad with that, which is like you were talking about, the stress of being exposed to something that's happening in another country, and now you feel bad about it because you can't do anything. But the good side of it that I look at is how connected we're becoming. How much easier it is for me to talk to someone in another country and understand that their culture and beliefs are completely different, but they live their life in kind of the same moral fashion that I do. It's interesting to see the kind of similarities that we have between each other. And I mean, yeah, someone could say, oh, well, this is my right and wrong, and it'd be a bunch of bad things. But would I do that? Would you do that? Would someone who's listening do that? Would anyone that you know specifically do that? Is that how they think? I mean, sure, the possibilities out there someone could be bad, but the possibilities out there that someone could be good, or that someone could be neutral. I mean, there's so many different things. And that's why we have laws to kind of help, weed out the bad ones from the good ones. But there's not really like a preventative measure to kind of actually help humans from being the bad. Because you're not just born wanting to go do all those bad things. You're
Oh,
molded
I
into
think that
that.
you're definitely born pretty daggone bad. And I
Really?
think that it takes
Okay.
society teaching you to resist those urges for you to be a good person. I mean, I love my child, but when she was born, she was an incredibly selfish person, just like every other baby on this planet.
Yeah.
And you have to teach them to stop being that way. But I don't think we're born altruistic. I don't think we're born good. I think we're born selfish, which is the way we need to be so we can get our needs fulfilled. But then our society, whichever society we grow up in, teaches us what's expected and what to do to be a good person. But I don't think that's just our natural instinct, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense. There are societies out there today with the same human beings that are born in that society that stone women for cheating on their husbands. And I don't think that's a good thing in any society, but they would say it's okay because that's the way that their society judges right and wrong. And that's fine. I have no problem with that. That's the way their society has determined it needs to be. But other societies would find that abhorrent. And so I don't know that you can say there's a collective right and wrong when different societies have decided what's right and wrong differently over the years. I guess I'm being here I am, this happy-go-lucky person, but I am pessimistic in the sense that I don't think human
I
beings by
understand.
nature are just these happy, wonderful people. I know for myself, I'm a happy, joyful person, but there's all kinds of darkness in me. There's darkness in everybody. And the first question you asked me, what gets you up and going in the day? If you don't have the right reason for that, or any reason, then I believe the darkness starts to creep in and take over.
I mean, that definitely makes sense. I don't disagree that, I don't think we're born innately good. Um, I guess that went in more specific. So yeah, I mean, what I meant by I don't think we're born innately bad either, though, but it doesn't mean the opposite. If so,
You're right. I think we're born
there's
innately
just so much to think
selfish,
about.
which
Okay.
isn't necessarily bad. If you're a tiger
Yes.
and you live alone in the jungle, well, being selfish is perfect. But in a world where you're trying to create a utopia where everybody coordinates together, you can't be selfish. And so that's why it takes a lot of effort to make our innate selfishness work together as a society. That's what I meant. It's not so much bad,
Okay.
it's more we're just selfish, and that's the way all animals are created pretty much. And it's hard to get over that.
I mean, that's the basic survival instinct is I need to survive. How can I survive? You're only thinking of you,
Correct.
and so I definitely understand that as babies and as kids, that's kind of where the basis of probably all of your thinking is coming from is, if you have to always worry about it, but because of our luxuries of growing as a species that we now have the ability as children to not have to worry about, I'm gonna continuously have to survive. There are kids out there who are able to just enjoy being a kid.
Yeah,
But
but you have me wondering. I'm not
you
sure we ever stop being really selfish. Our bubble may get bigger. So
Yes.
I may include my family now, but I'm going to want what's best for my family over your family in theory. If
Yes.
there's only one house available, I'm going to want it for me. And then, okay, fine, let's take it bigger. I'm going to want what's best for my school district
Yeah.
over someone else's, because that's the nature of it's horrible to say that, but it's the truth. And if anybody says it's not the truth, they're probably lying. You're always going to want but what's best for your whatever it is. It can be as big as your country and it can be as big as the world, but more frequently it's going to be smaller. And
But I
how
think
you
we
get
could
that bubble bigger
collectively,
is hard.
yes, that is difficult, but I think we could collectively come up with, things that we agree upon, like, if it's gonna injure or hurt anyone else, don't do it.
But how do you define injure? Is hurting someone's feelings injuring? I mean,
Then I guess,
it's hard.
yeah, no,
It's
I
hard to
mean,
define
you
that.
make it definitely because you make a good point, and you would have to then you would just have to understand that each situation is going to be specific. And I mean, isn't that pretty much just what the justice system is? It's
Right.
handling each
Eh,
specific situation that comes with that vague written law.
Yeah, but man, it's a slippery slope. Like there are countries now with hate speech, and we have some, but there are countries with much more specific or broader, I should say, actually, hate speech rules than ours. And I just find it incredibly scary that you could get jailed for being mean. Not saying that we shouldn't be mean or we should be mean to each other, but I don't know that being mean by itself should be criminal. Um, I don't think I should be able to punch you or hit you, but I don't know that I should be legally forced to be nice. Because again, it's a slippery slope. What do you consider mean? Something that I don't think is mean, and it's such a hard thing to define exactly where you're going to draw the line on that. It scares me a little bit to start forcing morality with law. Yes, we do it in the big things like murder, but when you start trying to dictate how people actually just think, or some extent even interpersonal relationships, I don't have to like everybody. I don't think you should have to make people like everybody. And it's just it's a I don't know, it's a weird slippery slope that I see us on right now. And while I don't think people should be mean, I'm not sure that that shouldn't be through societal pressure. So I have no problem with societal pressure dictating that we don't and use the N word anymore. But I don't ever hear that outside of music or whatever, because we as a society dictated it was unacceptable, and so people stopped doing it. But to say using the N word is illegal, I think that's the wrong method, because I just think it could turn around and get used on you in ways that are unpredictable.
Well, then that would eventually become, who's in charge of dealing out the societal pressure. That I think that we're at a good point right now with technology and social media. That's what the societal pressure is. And it's at first when it came out, everyone was just posting how great everything is, and then people started realizing, like, because I'm seeing a lot more now of, like, don't listen to the influencers, don't think social media is life, even from people who are, teenagers currently right now. There are posting things like that and showing videos of, like, this is what I look like in my picture, but this is what I look like 5 seconds before I took the picture, and it's like nothing even the same. So they're trying to get rid of that illusion that humans are perfect. And I was gonna say, how do you dictate humanity on a right and wrong in that sense? If you were saying on how it's like illegal to be mean, but we all should understand to a degree that you just should not be mean to someone. That's just it's not. You wouldn't want someone to be mean to you, so don't be mean to another person. But how do you influence that? And then you said societal pressure,
Well, and
and I
also, how do you define it? What you think is mean might be me just standing up for my own beliefs. And so
yeah.
then you've now made the decision. If you're the government and you're making laws, you have to choose between two people who both believe they have valid points of view, but one view would be contradictory or mean to the other one. So at some point, you're then picking sides instead of letting both people have their own point of view. I guess that's why I'm under the impression of, like, live and let live. I believe there should be as minimal amount of laws as possible. And then, yes, again, I don't mean society pressure, like, exactly, but I do believe that, people tend to live around people that have similar values to them. And so they're going to kind of self enforce that. But I don't know that I should enforce it on someone across the world who doesn't have that same point of view as me.
do agree with that, but with something as, I guess, what I would find to be as drastic as like the stoning part, that's, to what degree do we say we should move past that? That's, I do believe we should have general laws because it is so hard to dictate specific situations that us as a society should kind of just communicate with each other instead of having someone dictate it, I guess. But that would only work in like you said, in a village where it would be easier to have, not too many people putting in their specific opinions, and maybe swaying it or turning it a different way, or even coming up with a completely different scenario or different situation. It's really complicated. Right and
Yeah,
wrong.
that's probably why I'm not a globalist. Because again,
Yeah.
the more people, the more different types of people you put together and expect to agree, I think that's just a big undertaking. And I'm not even sure it's for the best because why should we make everybody believe the same? If everybody's okay with believing A in this group and everybody's okay with the opposite and believing B in the other group, why should we make them agree? Why can't this half live here and under the A rules and the other half live the other way? Why should we say everybody has to be the same? Why should that culture that all, if they all did, believed that it was okay to stone anybody for anything, if they all like those rules, which I'm not saying they do, and are freely choosing to live there, which again I'm not saying they are in this case, well then what is it our business to say that that society is right or wrong? I guess that's why I believe that we shouldn't have a global system, and it should be more like, I believe government should be more localized, that the biggest most invasive rules should be on the city level, and then the state, and then the country, or whatever.
I agree with that. I mean, that's I've been trying to figure out a way to interpret how I think it's a bit ridiculous that states exist and have their own specific laws, but then there's the federal government that also tells all of them what to do, but each state can choose not to abide by it. But the people who live in this state voted for the person who is telling the state what to do, but because the state doesn't want to, that person in the state doesn't get to say.
Well,
So how do you,
I guess part of me is that because the federal government shouldn't be telling states what to do in general anyway. Hold on.
but
Like
that's the
in a
whole point of a
purist,
United States, though.
yeah,
Like
but in a
that's
purist constitutional point of view, the only thing they should be telling states what to do on is interstate commerce, national defense. There should not be laws about personal behavior that are coming from the federal government.
no. I think that each state specifically should dictate their own law, and if the people in that state don't agree with it, they should write. They should do something in their state about it. That's the whole point of protesting. That's the whole point of voting. That's the whole point of giving speeches or giving your opinion to any kind of demographic. Is you want to get it out there. It's possible. It takes a lot of effort. It definitely takes some time to gain some traction doing it and getting enough people who maybe agree with you. But I feel like if you're not getting a lot of people to kind of agree with you on what you're saying, then maybe
But what's
that's
a
a
lot
pretty
of
good
people?
indication. I get okay.
Because for the most part,
Yeah, what's a lot of
51% in
people?
this country is the most you're ever going to get to agree on just about anything. And again, that's my
Yeah.
point. I think states should be more important than they are because,
Yes.
at best, 51, I mean, a landslide election nationally, and it's like 51%. That's not. That's not a landslide. That's literally half the country is unhappy, and no matter what happens, half the country is
Yeah.
unhappy, and it shouldn't be that way. So it should be the case that you can live in whatever state lines up, and there's 50 choices. You should be able to find a state that lines up with your belief system the best, live there happily, and then the federal government, even if the person you don't like is in charge, their impact on your day-to-day life is minimal.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I just don't see any evidence of us getting to a 75-25 even, which is still a quarter of the people being miserable all the time.
Well, I
Um,
mean, that would have to imply that the person on that party that got the 25% went through all of the preliminaries up to that voting for presidency or whatever seat that they're getting, that they went through all of that and beat out every other person in their party for that opportunity, and only 25% of the country liked them. So like I could see where it's hard to get those percentages to be very vastly different because of how much people are campaigning and how much people are going around and trying to get people to just get their vote. They're not actually I feel like a lot of the time I don't hear a lot of actual ideas or a lot of actual progressive thinking, just in a sense of moving forward as a country and as a people, as a society, as human beings towards each other. I grew up being told this country was the melting pot. I got told that this country has everyone from everywhere and you can learn so much about everything, But then as I got older, I got told that some of the stuff I wanted to learn, I should not because it's not okay. And don't learn that or don't think about that. You need to do this, you need to do that, you need to go forward and do this, you need to go do that. But I wanted to be president when I was a kid. No one supported that. No one said, okay, yeah, enjoy it. I
Well,
love the
I'm not
American
sure anybody
government.
actually enjoys it, to be
Well,
honest.
yeah, but I mean, no one was like, yeah, sure, you can do it.
Well,
And
they should
here's a
have.
list
That's
of
a shame.
stuff you should probably do in order to get there. They were just like, you'll never please everyone in the country. That's what I got told.
Well,
And I'm
that's
like,
true.
if that it is 100%. That is true. I think that's something maybe everyone in the country could collectively
You're
agree on.
actually correct. The idea that we'll never agree on anything is something we can all agree on.
Yes.
But it does, I mean, and I don't know. I know a lot about politics in this country. I don't know a lot about politics in other countries. So I can't speak on it. But I do find the concept of multiple parties intriguing for that reason, because there's very rarely any party that's getting over 50%. And so what happens is all these little parties have to band together, at least from what I've gathered, and kind of make concessions, and then they form like alliances so that they can get the majority. But all those little groups had to kind of give and take a little. No one person was able to just be, I got the 51, so I'm going to bully the other 49. You kind of had to make concessions to get to that point. And I don't know that's better or worse because I have never lived under those systems, but it's at least something I think is intriguing.
I'm a bit intrigued by the possibility of just having multiple parties in general and the fact that more people are aware that there are multiple different people you could vote for,
And the problem
And
is nobody wants to be the first one. So, okay, fine.
yeah,
Okay, as a Democrat or as a Republican, I'm going to push the other party. Yeah, why don't you split up into a few different parties? Oh, psych, we're not going to those. So, we're going to win every election for the rest of eternity. So, you can't really do it because the other people are afraid to pull the trigger. And I don't know how you would force it unless you literally had a governmental law that then said there had to be more than two parties, because otherwise with basically a 50-50 split, no one party is going to split up into a couple different
well,
parties. That would be
at
suicide.
that point, would it not make sense to have one party be a president and one party be a vice president, just like a first place and a second place,
Well, that's how
or a
they
runner
used to
up?
do it. Back in the old days, you voted for the president and the vice president, and the first place winner was president, and second place winner was vice president, and it was almost always the one in the other party. So that's how it was in the beginning with, Washington and everything. I don't know when it changed, but I think it was because the vice president was always kind of hindering the president's ability to get anything done. So I think that's why they changed it. But yeah, that's how it used to be.
So- See, and I wish it wasn't like that because if whoever ran for that office and actually got it and only cared about progressing our country and humanity and trying to actually help us end, whether it be poverty or whether it be homelessness or, just people being hungry or not enough jobs or infrastructure or anything in our country that is a problem. If they absolutely 100% did that, and so did Congress and so did the Senate, then there would be no issues. There would be no one trying to stop the other person from doing it because they're all trying to come to an agreement to help each other, to help their constituents, to help their states, to help their people, to help each other.
Well, I think the American people agree with you, which is why historically, whenever there's a president of one party, shortly thereafter, the American people elect the other party as the majority of Congress. Because I think innately
I
people
have
want a
noticed that
balance.
pattern.
And the problem with that is, and it's a problem and it's a good thing, it's what people want, because they want balance. They don't want one party in control of the entire government. The problem is that means, well, I guess it's not a problem really how you look at it. The benefit to that is that our government works slowly. And while that is frustrating to people, if one party could be in party for 4 years and change the entire country dramatically, which is what everybody always promises to do, if you could actually be elected for 4 short years and fundamentally completely transform the country, that is way too much power for 4 year elected term. You shouldn't be able to do that, because then you get one person in and it changes the world. That's why there is that push in that pool. That's why things are slow to get done, because then the stuff that does get done had to be somewhat of a compromise between the parties, because you had to fight with Congress if you're the president, or you had to fight with the other half of Congress. It's frustrating, but it allows the government to move slow, which is in reality what's best. Because when you're in power, you're like, yeah, I want everything to happen fast before we lose power. But what happens when you're not the one in power? You don't want it to be moving fast. So everybody's really better off if it moves slower.
So tough, because like I do agree that it would be absolutely terrible if you could change the entire country in a matter of 4 years. But I also feel like 4 to 8 years is not enough time to actually get anything that you really want done, save for maybe two things that aren't even that big of a deal.
But see,
Because, but that's where I think the focus should shift to Congress and Senate. They should be more important. They should be way more important than the presidency. We should pay way more attention to,
oh, I
which
agree.
is where
They're
I
where
think
the
we
laws are
kind of
supposed to
are.
be made.
Yeah, I think that's where we kind of are right now. I've noticed more people are paying way more attention to that and talking about what's going on, and news is covering it. But it's just, I mean, it's not going to be perfect because we're not perfect being. We've been guessing our entire existence. We've
Yeah.
just been trying. We've just been trying to figure it out, just like me, just like you, just like anyone who's listening. We're all just trying to figure out how to be alive and what we should do.
Well, yeah, when it comes down to it, it's as simple as that. The problem is, it's a hard thing to do for
Yeah,
billions of people all at one time. It's hard to do
yeah,
that. But as far as your 48 year thing, my answer to that would be, if the people as a whole are happy with what you were doing in your 48 years, then they will elect someone to come after you that will fulfill and continue on with what you are achieving. And we've had runs like that in this country, where one party stayed in power for several presidencies because the country liked what those policies were doing. And then we've had times where it flips and flops, because, in my opinion, if it flips and flops continuously, that means the people aren't happy with either one. And so they keep trying to find someone to do it right. But if you've got it for 4 years and then we got it for 4 years, and then it's clearly that the people as a whole aren't happy. If they were happy with what you were doing, they would have elected the person that come after you. So I guess, in my opinion, if they're not happy, then you shouldn't get to keep going with what you were trying to achieve in 4 to 8 years.
I mean, yes, that's that's exactly it. That's where we're at, and that's what happened. I do agree that that system works. It's just
It's frustrating when you're the one with
sometimes
power and
things
you
don't
want it to get
happen.
done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, kind of. It does depend on what it is that you want to get done. But I feel like there were some good things that could have happened way sooner than they actually have, or way sooner. Or some people have had the same. We've been having the same argument in this country pretty much for the past like 60 to 70 years. Even longer, and we still haven't gotten past it. And it's a long process, only because people who are able to control what is going on are able to just say, no, we want to stay the same way we are. Why should we change that?
Well, I don't know that anybody never wants to change, but I do think some people think there are things that are good that shouldn't be changed just for the sake of changing it, or well, changing it to that is a bad change. I don't know very many people who just think, no, we should never, ever, ever change. It's more a case of, well, I'm not saying we ought not change, but I don't think that's the direction of change that I want to go.
Okay.
I just haven't met very many people in my life personally who literally want to. I know I hear it in the media all the time. Like, for instance, people think, super conservative people want to live like it's the 50s and the woman in the pearls and the dress. I don't know any conservatives who believe that. It's just so I think change is fine. I think everybody wants to use a word that's buzzy. I think everybody wants to progress. It's just some people want to progress in one way and some people want to progress in another way. But I don't personally know very many people who literally just want to never ever have anything change.
Okay. I feel like we should start giving people the option to choose whether or not you want to be a part of society at a specific age, or whenever you decide you just don't want to. As
Well,
long
that's
as
what
you meet a
Montana's
minimum
for.
age requirement. Yeah, that's. I mean, Glacier Park out there is beautiful.
I know
And
people who are planning to retire to Montana basically off the grid and not be part of society. I mean, there are ways to do it if you want to. And I sure as heck
okay,
wouldn't try to force my way into Montana and make those people comply.
yeah, but I mean, it's not given to us as an option ever.
Well, I do
It's
think
never presented
possibly
to us.
we ought to have, I hate to say it this way, I don't want to use the word earn, because I think everybody who is born here ought to be able to be a citizen. I think, though, there should be maybe some requirements for it. I'm not saying you have to be military service or whatever, but like maybe you should have to do some community service or whatever, or take citizenship classes, whatever. And then, you know what, if you don't want to do that, fine, but then you don't get certain rights of a citizen. But I think we take it for granted in general, the ability to be part of society, like you said, and not just citizenship in general. But I think as we grow up, we don't learn what we need to learn sometimes to be functional in society. And I think we should do a better job of teaching that, and not just, oh, you're not good for society, let's throw you in jail. Well, how about we just teach people how to be part of society in general, and then maybe we wouldn't have so many problems. Or if you don't want to be part of society, that's fine. But
Yeah.
then here's what your life looks like. This is where you're going to live or what you're going to do, and you're going to leave society alone, and we'll leave you alone. But you can't be in society and causing chaos. But if you don't want to be part of society, you want to live in a anti-societal way, then so be it. But then you're going to have certain restrictions or whatever it is.
Okay.
But that all sounds terrible, so I'm not sure I really feel like that. I don't know, I just was
Yeah.
winging it. But then I started saying
That's
it, and I was
all
like,
right.
ugh. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
you
mean,
can
I
all
don't
just
feel
go
like you
live in
should be.
Montana. There you go. Just all live in
Yeah,
Montana, and we'll leave you alone.
I just feel like you should be given the option. That should be presented to you as an option, whether it be when you're in high school or in college. That it is
But what does
possible.
that look like if you say no?
What do you mean if you say no?
If you say no, I don't want to be part of society.
Why does that have to look like anything? You don't want to be a part of society. You want to go live on your own deal. That's your own
So
journey.
do you
That's
get
you. Go do
the
it.
benefits? Do you get electricity? I mean,
Well, no,
I-
you'd be off the grid. You would have to supply everything yourself. You can
okay,
go
so
into
there would
society
be
and use the
consequences.
store.
That's what I mean, yes.
Okay. I mean, it would be harder to live because you don't have the benefits and the help of having a group society with you and
Correct.
going to a convenience store or a supermarket to buy your food and everything. You have to go out and look for it.
Well, I kind of feel like to some extent the old 70s communes were kind of like that. I mean, they could still be part of society if they wanted to, but they basically went off the grid, and they did it, with a group of people, so it's easier, but they basically were self-sufficient, living off the grid. And I think that's wonderful. I think everybody should be able to do that if they want, or at least, like you said, have the option. Hey, do you know you can just go live in a hippie camp and all, whatever. Well, it's kind of like the Amish, right? They send their kids on
Yeah.
that journey to the regular world to see if they really want to be Amish. They give them that opportunity.
Maybe we should do like a work exchange with
I
them
always
on that.
thought I respected them for that, because it's a
Yeah.
pretty
No,
strict religion,
absolutely.
but
And
they
people
don't
choose to go
force it.
back.
A lot of times they do, because let's be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, if technology takes over the world and Skynet and all that stuff happens, I'm running to the Amish. I don't know about you, but they know how to grow food, and I don't.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only problem with technology is that it seems like a lot of people are letting the technology run their life rather than using it in a way that benefits their own life.
I agree. There's wonderful things about technology. I wouldn't be talking to you right now if it weren't for technology. Um,
Exactly.
but at the same time, like you were saying earlier about social media, it's a proven fact now that it's been mentally damaging to younger people. Like, it's self esteem and just all kinds of stuff. It's a layer of stress that none of us have to deal with. I mean, like, you get bullied in school, you can go home and get away from it for at least a few hours. Now
Yeah.
it follows you home and you never get away from it. It can be wonderful, but at the same time, I'm glad I didn't grow up in the world that my daughter's going to grow up in.
Yeah. And I mean, that's where us trying to put laws on it comes from. Hey, stop doing this. Because you're not just living your life, you're damaging other people, you're preventing them from being able to live theirs. And I think that's where we should collectively agree that's when a thing is bad. When you're stopping someone from being able to live their life.
No, I agree. I mean, like, in general, any kind of bullying or whatever shouldn't be tolerated, but it seems to be pretty frequently tolerated. I know there's all these like anti-bullying campaigns all these years, but it doesn't seem to have stopped it. My philosophy is, yes, let's tell everybody to stop being bullies, but I think in response to that, people stopped telling their kids how to handle a bully, and I think that was a very bad decision. Like, if you go back and watch any show from like the 60s or 70s with kids in it, there was always a bully, and there was always the kid being bullied, and then their parents would teach them how to stand up to the bully, because the bully was really just, you know, trying to make themselves feel better and whatnot. And they always stand up to the bully, and then the bully backs down or whatever. The point is, we taught them how to stand up to the bully. And I think today nobody wants to teach their kid to stand up to the bully, because we want to just believe that we're getting rid of bullies or something. I'm not sure why, but it doesn't happen, and then kids don't know how to handle it. Or worse, they think they're the only kid getting bullied, because, but look, there's all these anti-bullying things, so I must be the only one. And then they go off and end themselves because they don't know how to handle it, because nobody's trained them that it's okay to be bullied. If someone's bullying you, that isn't your problem, that's theirs. It doesn't mean you're bad, and here's how you can handle it, and teach them the steps. Come to me, talk to me, blah blah blah, on how to handle that.
I mean, I would love to touch on that right now, but I do need to go. I'm
No,
sorry.
it's fine.
It's yeah, we've been talking for quite so
Hey, Rascal's
um
my DM. He knows I can talk forever.
yeah, that's all right. I do thank you for everything you've said. It's been definitely very insightful, very eye opening. I mean, that's what it's all for. It's just a different perspective.
Oh no, this has been great. I've never thought about some of the things we talked about really the way that we talked about them before. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you for coming here and letting me ask you questions. Enjoy
No
the rest of your
problem.
evening.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye bye.